just feel so good, good, good. I just feel so good, good, good. I just feel so good.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rachelle. Who here wants to get paid to travel in 2020? Yeah, you guys are in the right place. My name is Rachelle Lucas. I have a travel blog called thetravelbite.com. And with all this networking we've been doing, I feel like I'm losing my voice, so that's why I'm holding a tea. So if you're wondering why I have two accessories in my hand, it's because I want to be able to project to you guys in the back. But today we are going to talk about how to land sponsored travel as a blogger. So not just press trips, but also actually getting paid to travel. I'm going to go over the 3 mistakes that I usually see bloggers do that are really common, I think, that hinders your ability to really land a sponsored travel trip. And then also we're going to put together like a template of what a pitch might look like, and then talk about the ways you can get paid to travel. Just a little bit about me. I started blogging in 2008, I think it was. I used to be an innkeeper. I used to run a bed and breakfast, and I was the youngest bed and breakfast owner, I think, in the area. So they all looked to me and said, hey, Rachelle, we really need to get you into this blogging thing to market the bed and breakfasts. And so that's how I got into blogging about food and travel, is I was doing breakfast recipes and then writing itineraries of what people can do in our small town, so they would stay at the inns longer. So we did innkeeper recipes, promoted the town. People started going to the town to ask if I was a real person. And this was, back in the old days too, where it was really like a web blog. It was very much in the beginning. And I think I when they asked me what a blog was, I was like, sure, let me find out. I didn't even know. So one day I finally got tired of doing laundry. When you're a bed and breakfast owner, you do a lot of laundry. And the one thing I learned from that is I never want to own a brick and mortar business again. So I was doing laundry and I was watching Samantha Brown, and I thought, gosh, I'm on the opposite side of hospitality. I want to be out traveling rather than hosting travelers. And so I rebranded my blog, sold the inn, and now I've been blogging for about 10 years. I've been on over 100 press trips and about 45 paid campaigns. And so I just did 10 campaigns this year. I usually don't travel much anymore unless it is something that's paid, because I enjoy being home too. So does anybody else here feel frustrated when you scroll through Instagram and you see people going on trips and you're like, how are they getting on this trip? Do I have to have 100,000 followers on Instagram to even get invited? Does anybody feel that way? Okay. Imagine what it would feel like if not only you didn't have to have 100,000 followers to be invited on trips, but also not only were you pitching travel, but people were starting to pitch travel to you. Does that sound good? All right, okay, good. So I'm going to go over the 3 mistakes first in pitching sponsored travel. So the very first mistake I think people make is focusing on their numbers instead of their niche. And so many times because I've been in the business for a long time, I'll see requests from travel brands or from DMOs looking for specific bloggers, and they really tend to go micro niche. They tend to look for the wine bloggers, the craft bloggers. There was someone I met on our first night here, and she said, I do a craft blog. Do you think there's an opportunity for travel in that? And I was like, absolutely. I met a blogger in Ravenna in Italy this summer who was writing about the tile mosaics there. So the more micro niche you can go, the better. I think it really helps out because everybody's doing this lifestyle thing now where they're casting a really wide net, and they're thinking, I do this and this and this and this, and they've got 10 things on their website. And I think you're better able to reach your audience, especially in the travel niche, because that's a big investment for people to make, and you're more trusted if you're more narrowly focused on what you're doing. So what you want to do is you want to think micro and not macro. So whatever type of blog you have now, whether that's travel or food or fitness, think about how you can go even micro niche with that within the travel community. Also think multi-platform. I think in the last couple years, there's been this huge trend for people just to focus so much on Instagram for travel campaigns, and you can still travel, you can still book sponsored campaigns without Instagram being your main platform. And since all of you are here from Mediavine, I know you're getting traffic. So definitely use that as to your best ability to put your best foot forward and be like, here's my blog, here are the numbers on my blog, because that's going to be a much better long tail benefit for destinations and DMOs, because it's going to last a lot longer than just putting things on social media. So like I said before, the audiences are a lot more targeted, there's a lot higher engagement rates, and there's a lot more personal connections with followers the more micro niche you are. This was one that I worked on. I actually write a lot about wine and gin and Italian food. So I took the sommelier test and wrote about the experience of taking the sommelier test. I don't call myself a sommelier because I feel I have much respect for what sommeliers do, but I did pass. And because of that, I was invited to go on several paid wine campaigns because I could talk to the winemakers, and I could talk about the wines, and I could also talk about it from a consumer standpoint too, because without being fussy and without getting into all the details. So definitely think micro niche and how that might fit with your blog. Also, you want to target destinations and brands that align with your audience. My husband's been a bit spoiled traveling with me we've been married for 9 years now, and so whenever I bring up a vacation idea, he's like, oh, can you make this into a work trip? And I'm like, hon, I write about food, I don't write about penguins in Antarctica, so no, I can't get this one sponsored. So definitely target destinations and brands that are in alignment with your audience. You're gonna have a much easier time getting those sponsorships approved if it's something that you can show that your audience is interested in. So here's an example of that, of going super micro niche and reaching an audience that fit with a specific brand. So I worked on 2 campaigns this summer with fitness-focused cruising for active travelers. So a lot of my readers are either single women or couples, so they're not families. They're interested in recipes for 2, and they're also interested in travel for couples or travel for business travel. And a lot of them are very savvy, but they don't have the time to plan travel. So this was a perfect fit because this specific company takes care of all those details for you. So it's not like getting on a bus with 50 people on a tour. When you go, you arrive and they plan like hikes for you and they do other things on the ground, but you're really traveling as an independent traveler. It's so micro niche that only people that sell travel, like travel agents, really knew about it. And so they were trying to get the word out. And this was a great opportunity for me to work with them because that is exactly what my audience is. So think about what your travel niche is. Take a moment now to take some, or niche, I don't know what you guys say, I just say both. And think about how you can incorporate travel with your current audience. What do some of you write about? Raise of hands. Yes?
Green living.
Green living.
Norway.
Norway, see, very super niche. Yes? Ooh, oh, yes, for sure. Yes?
Family travel.
Family travel, perfect. So see, think about how you can incorporate specific destinations that are in alignment with that, with what you're already writing, what your audience is already interested in. So the second mistake I see is pitching a vacation. And a lot of the different Facebook forums and things I'll see, people, it will sound something like, they'll post their pitch and they'll want some help with it, and it'll be like, hi, travel destination or hotel company, I'm going to Hawaii with my family, can we get a sponsored room for exchange of coverage? That's not gonna get answered. And the reason is you can imagine free travel is the dream, so they're getting hundreds of these a day, the same that we get bombarded with press releases. And so those tend to not get noticed or not get read. So you wanna really make sure that you're targeting something specific. And I don't wanna say that planning a travel or planning a trip around your vacation is bad. You can certainly pitch travel to go with your vacation or to subsidize your vacation or to get paid to go on vacation. And no one sees the world the way you do. So even if it's a popular destination, you still have a unique story and a unique perspective to tell. But you want to pitch a story. So you want to do some research. Instead of saying, hey, we want to give you, coverage on our blog or social media in exchange for this free stay or this free attraction or we want to charge you for a blog post, come up with something very specific, something unique that is something only you could tell. Definitely match travel brands that match your niche, and I just said this, what unique stories you could tell. I often use I already told you the example of the Antarctica. The other big dream trip of mine that I will not get through my blog is sleeping under the northern lights. So it doesn't fit with what I write about. And so, if you want to go do something that's fun, like going to Paris or to London or the Northern Lights, plan that as a vacation. But if you're wanting to incorporate it as part of your blog, really think of the stories that you're going to pitch and how it fits within your travel niche. So great stories happen to those who can tell them. So here's an example of fitting your travel niche and then telling a good story that's not just like a top 10 or a listicle. And it was a campaign I worked with Visit Jordan. And of course we wrote about food, and Jordan and Petra is a huge travel destination. You'll see it all over Instagram. But the stories that they needed specifically were the things that people were searching for. And Visit Jordan could share those stories, but it's much more believable to read those stories when it's coming from a blogger, because it's more of a trusted source, because people feel like they're being marketed to if it's coming from the destination. And so I did this campaign right at the height of the Syrian war, so this was probably 4 years ago, and Jordan's neighbors are not cool. Like when you look at the map, you're like, oh, that doesn't look very safe to travel to. But Jordan's economy is very heavily dependent on tourism. So people were starting to cancel their trips, so they needed to do a campaign, to show, yes, it's safe to travel to Jordan, and here's what an American's experience is like. And so the posts that we did for them were, here's why I felt safe, here's what our experience was, here's some packing tips when you're, as a woman, if you're planning to go travel to a primarily Muslim country, what's appropriate to wear, what's respectful to wear. Those posts still do amazing with traffic on my blog. My social media is totally buried. So I think if you can show on your blog how you can share those stories in the long term is really beneficial to you, and especially if you're able to share stories that the destination normally wouldn't share. I mean, we all get paid for the listicles, right? The top 10 to do in Austin and that kind of thing. But if you can share some more of those deep dive stories, I think that's a lot better. And they don't, also, those deep dive stories don't have to get a lot of traffic. They can get, usually because they're not something that's clickbait worthy, they're more smaller stories, but they still have a great long-term effect. So think about some unique travel stories that you could share when you're pitching a destination. Even if it's something like you're going on vacation somewhere, try and do your research ahead of time. So you're not just saying, hey, we want to do this in exchange for coverage. Say, hey, here are our story ideas. We'd love to work with you. Here's our media kit. Here's what our audience is interested in. Let's talk. So mistake number 3, has anybody ever sent a pitch and never heard back? Yes. Was it a cold pitch? Was it somebody you've never met before? Yes. So 90% of marketers never respond to an unsolicited inquiry, and 88% will have nothing to do with a cold call or pitch. And if you think about it, when you travel with someone, there's no real better way to know if you like someone than to travel with them. So it's really important, especially in the travel industry, that they know you and they feel like they have a relationship with you before they are working with you. So, of course, people love to work with who they know. Like even with hosting here, I've been talking to Agathon in the hall. I don't know who my current hosts are. I've never met them in person. And so, I'm probably going to move my hosting over to them because I feel like I have a relationship with them. I feel like I met them. I feel like when I send an email, there's a face to go with that. So how do you get to know people that you've never met or that are in different cities or different countries? One way you can do that is going to conferences. So there's a lot of different travel conferences you can go to, and you can meet some of these destinations and travel brands in person. Another way is just to get to know them on social media. Like I think a lot of times we use social media as a way to push out our content all the time and to connect with our followers, and we forget we want to engage with potential brands and destinations that we want to work with as well. So if you start, seeing if they have any Twitter chats or just commenting on their Instagram, that's usually their marketing company handling that social media for them. And so they'll start recognizing your face, they'll start recognizing your blog. They might check out your blog and see how it might relate to them. So this is an example of a campaign I did with Visit Britain, and the very first time I met them was at a conference, and then I went on an unpaid press trip with them that they invited me on after that conference. And then after that press trip, I did 3 paid campaigns with them. And they were very unique, they were very specific to my niche, and one of them was specifically about British gin, because I'll tweet about gin and tonics on a Friday night. And the campaign was specifically to meet with small batch gin producers and to introduce those producers to the US market. And so it was something that was really unique. It wasn't like a top 10 things to do in London or anything that you would normally think of with travel. It was something that had to do with what I usually share on social media, and it was a very specific campaign that they were working on. So think really, I know this is cliche to say, but think very outside the box when you're pitching your stories. So think about some ways that you can use what your current hobbies and loves are, like mine was gin, and how that might attract a travel brand or destination with you. Like crocheting, I'm already in my mind thinking, gosh, I know you could pitch that because that's so unique. So it might be, specific yarn producers or dyes. Like I know in Ravenna it was the mosaics. But yeah, I feel like if you have a super micro niche, you have a really good chance of pitching a good story. Something else I wanted to address is your content is super valuable. So a lot of times I'll also see people afraid of sending a pitch because they're like, well, I'm already asking for this really expensive thing, for flights and hotels and attractions, and this is potentially, $5,000 in value. Who am I to also ask for money on top of that? But I want you to remember that the content you produce is really valuable. The photography that you do, your audience, you're more of a publisher than a travel writer. And so think about what other media would charge for all the things that you're doing. So what a photographer would charge to do the photography for a brochure for a destination, or think about what a magazine would charge for a half-page ad. I mean, you can look up all of those things for the editorial calendars for all the big travel magazines, and if your numbers aren't what theirs are, look at for some of the smaller ones, like the Edible Austin or whatever city you're in or whatever local magazine. See what they charge for a half-page ad. I think you'll be very surprised, and I think you can provide more value than those sorts of things. And so when you're sending your pitch, if you're feeling nervous about asking for a trip and getting paid, think about those numbers, because I think it will really help boost your confidence in what you're offering or what you're asking for. So let's talk about an example pitch. I'm going to leave this up here for a while because you guys might want to take a picture of it or write it down. And in considering the 3 mistakes we talked about pitching a vacation or not thinking micro niche enough, break that down in your example pitch. So you're going to introduce yourself. Hopefully you'll have either met them in person or have interacted with them on social media so they recognize your name. And I'm not talking about just like one interaction. I'm talking about you need to build it up over 2 or 3 months so they really think, oh yeah, I know so-and-so, and they might call you by your handle and not even your name. And then tell them that you've been a fan and what specifically you like about the destination and how long you've been following them for. Give an example of where your strengths are. So tell them what your most popular posts are and make sure that they're relevant to travel or to this brand if it's something specific or unique. So maybe not your top post, but what your top posts are in relation to what this pitch is going to be. And then finish it being with, we'd love the opportunity to work with you. Here are some ideas that we have. When you put your ideas there, give them, I like to use like a sandwich method where you give them several options. And maybe don't include the rates in your first pitch because you want them to reply back and be like, we really like option 2, and then send your rates afterwards because you want to get the conversation started. But have them tiered. So one might just be social media coverage. One might be social media coverage in a blog post. One might be a multimedia campaign where you give them, a portfolio of photography or videography or whatever your special skills are, where it's a huge thing. Did everybody write this down before I move forward? Okay. I can always go back if you need to. So in thinking about something unique that you can add to it, I really liked this quote by travel writer Tamala Rich, where she says, and you can apply this here in Mediavine this afternoon too when we do the networking break. When somebody asks you what you do, don't just start with your occupation or your blog name or your family status. Think about something that's the real you with a spin. Like her example is, you might say, back home I run a coffee shop, but on this trip I'm getting in touch with a part of me who's wished she studied archaeology. Something that's going to spark a conversation and have you stand out from the crowd, rather than, I'm just a lifestyle blogger and I'd like a free stay, but something that that really sparks their interest and makes you memorable. Everybody got that? So let's talk about money. Who wants to make money when they travel? So here are some examples of ways that you can make money through traveling. And it's a day rate for travel. And sometimes in contracts, they will have specific deliverables due per day. And I'm not talking blog posts. I'm talking maybe 1 tweet per day or 1 Instagram post per day. Those are all negotiable based on what your strengths are. And then anything additional after that minimum requirement, you would want to negotiate additional payment for that. You can also get paid per post, so it's totally doable just to pitch a travel story and get paid to write a sponsored post on your blog about that destination or brand or hotel. You can also do a multimedia campaign where you're also producing photography and video, and giving that, like if you were in the talk yesterday for legal, it'd be work for hire, so they would have the opportunity to use that on their website and other things, while also getting coverage on your blog, so it's really a good benefit for them. Another great one is ambassadorships or monthly retainers. And so there's some companies that will do year-long ambassadorships that include a certain number of blog posts, either per month or per week. I've done some with Visit Florida, so you could look at your state to see if you can come up with anything that you want to work with them, or your country. I think you were in Norway, you could do that as well. I've also done ambassadorships for theme parks like Universal Studios, where it was a year-long contract. And then appearance fees. This one's a little outside of the box too, in that you can get paid to do appearances. And so when I went to South Africa, they had scheduled a couple radio and television interviews for me to do to talk about food, or to talk about what I loved about South Africa and what we were doing, to kind of show a visitor's interest and kind of pique locals' interest in doing those things too. They were trying to get locals out into the winelands and to do some fun things. Another really unique, outside of the box appearance fee job that I did was a trip to Wales. And I worked with a travel company where I basically experienced their tour. It did not include a blog post, but it included photography, it included social media coverage, and then also included travel to their travel trade conference. So it's like live blogging. So they had the travel trade conferences, it was a bunch of travel agents, and so the travel agents would come kind of like you guys are here, and I would flip through the photos and tell them the stories about my trip and what specific things we did, so they could go back out and book it. So that was really interesting. It was like live blogging essentially. So there are definitely there's more than one way to make money and travel, and I think it's just really having the confidence to ask for what you're worth, and researching what that would normally cost a destination or travel company. I think a lot of times they try and take advantage of travel bloggers because everybody wants to travel and have it paid for, but you're really providing a high value in providing photography, in providing access to your audience and social media coverage. And so just be confident in those pitches and send that in. And I think we're ready for questions. I know I'm standing between you guys and lunch, so I wanted to leave enough room for questions, and also, for you to make it to lunch. I didn't want to go over it all. So I think I sped through that pretty fast, but I am going to do a free 10-day challenge where it's going to email you one thing to do a day that will help you kind of publicize yourself, to be your own publicist, to get noticed in the travel industry, and to tweak your press kit to get ready for pitching travel in 2020. And I'll set up a Facebook group too for Mediavine attendees that are coming, so that way you can ask me questions and interact as well. I put this link on my Instagram stories if you just want to click through. I don't think my Instagram's on the next slide maybe, but yeah, my Instagram is there. It's just the Travel Bite, and so if you go to my stories, you can scroll up and click through. So now it's question time. What questions do you have? Yes.
So when you go to pitch, how far out do you go? Like, do you say like next year, 6 months?
I would do both. So sometimes fiscal budgets, the year will end in June, and sometimes they need to plan a year in advance, and sometimes they'll be at the end of their fiscal year and they're like, we have to spend this money. And so like one of my friends that's a travel blogger, she's from the UK, and she just went to California on one of those trips where Visit California was like, what can we do? We've worked with you before, but we have to spend this budget before the end of the year. So, I would do like 6 months to a year. You don't want to do last minute. You don't want to be like, hey, I'm going to be there next week, because it's not going to happen.
Okay.
Yes.
So, how do you know when it's like a city or a state or a country who to reach out to? Like you said, build a relationship.
Yeah.
Over time, how do you find and start building that relationship, or even know what the tourism commission is in a given area?
Good question. And so the state and country commissions are usually government run. So they're taxpayer paid usually, and so they'll ask you for a lot more documentation, I think, than marketing companies and brands. So I think it's just looking for the tourism board's website first. So whether that, like I gave the example of Visit Jordan or Visit Florida or Visit Austin, you want to look for the tourism board and then go from there. Another trick is you can go online, because tourism boards sometimes have a budget and sometimes they don't, and it's just you just kind of have to try. But you can also go to Google and put agency on record for visit Florida and find out who their ad agency is, and that's who's going to have the money to want to pitch. So then you can find that ad agency on Twitter and start, or Instagram, and start interacting with them. So that's a little trick you can do. Yes?
You mentioned brands coming to you. How do you find that they are now finding you? Is it
Publicity. And so I think I've been doing it for a while, so I've had articles written about me, so they're probably finding me through that. Also just going to conferences, meeting people in person, participating in Twitter chats is a big one. So there's a lot of different, you name the niche and there's a Twitter chat for it. And so brands monitor that, especially if you're very interactive on those. And Twitter went through kind of a down phase, and then it's kind of getting popular again. So I definitely would, if you need to dust off your Twitter account, I would, because it definitely helps with visibility. But yeah, just trying to meet people in person if you can, and if you can't meet them in person, try and connect with them online. Yes.
So besides the blog, like what social media platforms would you focus on? Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram?
So it's interesting. Most travel brands I have seen, they don't really ask for Pinterest, but they do look for Instagram and Twitter. Instagram is, and I think I was talking to Jane about this yesterday because we were saying that sometimes they consider you just a blogger or an Instagrammer, so sometimes it's a bit educational to get them to know, oh, I do both, and here are both of my accounts. But I don't want anyone to feel frustrated if you don't have a huge Instagram. That doesn't matter, you can still get paid to travel, especially with some of these smaller destinations and smaller brands that are trying to get the word out and they're trying to tell their story in a different light. And the best way for them to do that is through bloggers. So if you can say multi-platform and be like, this is my monthly traffic, this is what my readers are interested in. If you don't know what your readers are interested in, do a reader survey and be like, where do you want to travel to next year? What kind of things are you interested in when you travel? And then put your social media in there as well. So in your pitch, I'd always lead with whatever your strength is and then go down from there.
And what's it like on YouTube?
They do a lot for YouTube. Yeah, so YouTubers get paid to travel as well, to produce videos. I've been on a campaign where they had 4 of us as bloggers and then a YouTuber, and then the YouTuber was filming us during the thing, and then it was for a video for their website, for the destination's website. So that's great too. I'm not a YouTuber though, so that's why I didn't cover it, but it definitely is out there. I think you had a question, yeah.
So I have 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
So when you refer to sponsored content in your pitch letter, is that just the warning, the indication that, hey, I expect to be paid?
Oh, yes, yes.
And then how do you set your day rate? Like when you give them the sandwich option,
Mm-hmm.
you say, okay, I'll do the blog post and this. Do you also input in there, I expect this much per day? Or where is those negotiations starting to happen?
Good question, very good question. So you're gonna set your day rate based on your followers and what you normally would charge for things. And when you use the sandwich method, of course, you don't wanna have them agree to a day rate and then have them have this expectation that you're gonna post 10 things to Instagram per day. So you have to, on your own comfort and ability on what you normally do, set those guidelines of what you'll provide and how much that will cost them. I wouldn't put, I expect to be paid. I would be like, I would love to work with you. Here's my rate sheet. And you would be surprised. Sometimes I'll send people a rate sheet and I'll sandwich it and they'll add on to it because I'll put what the individual costs for things, if they want a single tweet or a single Instagram share or a single blog post. And usually when I package it, I give a lower rate for packaging it all together. And so there was one campaign I worked on, I think it was a year and a half ago, with an airline, and they picked the bottom package and they added more to it, so it surprised me. So I think it's mostly saying, I would love to work with you, because a lot of times they'll be like, we want to work with you too. And then you're like, here's my rate sheet. And if they don't have a budget, still communicate with them, on social media and stuff, because they'll find it. They will find it. Yes?
Do you see a preference or a trend happening with destinations or brands from day rate to packages, or is it kind of a mix for you?
I have not seen a trend either way, because I've seen both this year. The one thing to look out for, it was addressed yesterday in one of the legal things, is a lot of times they want to use your photos and your likeness, so be careful about that. I'd look for that. But I've seen both. I have 2 sponsored posts going up this month where I didn't even travel to do it. There are destinations I've been to before, and they wanted me to write about something, that's going on right now. I've been contacted just to do a single Instagram post, and I've been contacted to do big campaigns. So there's not really a trend either way. I do think it's better and stronger to be multi-platform, because I know that I've gone on one campaign over the summer where it was all Instagrammers and me, and I feel like that's going to change. It won't be. You can't rely just on one platform anymore. Yes, way in the back.
Did you say to pitch what you're looking to do, and then when they come back and show an interest, then share rates?
Yeah, if you've never met them before, or if you've only interacted with them online, give them some ideas and say, I'd love to work with you, because working with somebody is different than giving them free publicity, right? And then if they say, yes, we're interested, be like, great, which of these are you interested in? Here's a copy of my media kit and my rate sheet. What's your budget? What's your time frame? All of those different things. And if you can get them on the phone, that's great too. But you can also do it all by email. Yes?
Would you be able to give some examples of brands that, I guess, a specifically travel blog might be able to reach out to outside of the traditional travel brands, so like hotels and lodging or airlines?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, name a brand and they're all connected to travel at this point, right? Like I've done work with a yogurt company that was using a specific ingredient in their yogurt, and it was Italian, so they wanted to get this out. You could work with specific apps that are food related or DIY related. Clothing and luggage is big. Yeah, I mean, you name it. If you can tie it to travel, you can definitely pitch it. Do you have any in mind? No? Yeah, and if you think about too, like the example I gave earlier about Ravenna. So Ravenna is a town in Italy that's known for, historically they're known for their tile mosaics. They have a couple UNESCO World Heritage Sites for those mosaics, but they also have tile mosaic companies there now creating mosaics that people are putting in beautiful houses and that kind of thing. And so that gets super micro niche, that gets very specific, and that's not related to travel, but you would travel there, you'd travel to Italy to talk about, the tile mosaics. So, I've seen people talk about World Heritage Sites. Yeah, it's a good question, and there's definitely, like, if you can name the brand, coffee. There's a coffee brand I remember seeing sent some bloggers to go visit their coffee farm, and they worked with food bloggers. So that's definitely that included travel and sponsorship, but it was specifically about their roasting and how they treat the farmers and that kind of thing. So it was about coffee.
So in those situations, would it be more likely that the brand would reach out to you, or would you make the connection?
Not always. Not always. You can make the connection.
I know your coffee is here.
Yeah, you can make the connection. And you could even do that locally. So if there's somebody in your town, like a local coffee roaster that sources their products well, and they're trying to get that message out, that's something you could pitch to them. Yes?
So how do you even value your Instagram follower amount?
It's all over the place, isn't it? So I've heard...
Saying 100,000. Well, what is that worth?
Yeah, so I've seen people charge as much as $5,000 per post on Instagram. I've seen people charge as much as $100 per Instagram post. So you have to decide, I think one of the guides is the $100 per 10,000 followers, yeah. So, but you also want to incorporate your time to take the photography and their usage of the photography. So I don't always look at just what the followers are, because it's usage as well.
And you'll include that typically in your contract?
Yes.
They can then share it on?
Yes. And usually they'll be very specific, like we want a portfolio of 10 photos, or we want a portfolio of 20 photos, and you get to decide which photos those are. So if you take 2,000 photos on a trip, you get to pick which ones you want to give them. So it's you can still maintain control of that. Yes?
I'm at level 0 in this conversation. I was just curious if you could talk about the logistics of stuff. Just give me an example of they're covering your flight and your lodging.
Yep.
Are they booking this stuff?
Yeah.
For you? Are they picking the dates? Are they reimbursing you? How does that stuff work?
So usually they will book everything for you in advance. So you'll get somebody that will contact you and be like, hey, we need your passport number, or we, if you've got a frequent flyer number, and they'll book they'll tell you which dates you're going. Usually the dates come first, because they want to know if you're available those dates before they even start contracting to work with you. And then they'll book the flights, they'll book the hotel, they'll usually send you an itinerary. You want to make sure the itinerary is realistic. 'Cause sometimes they will put more in there than you can physically do. So it's like, I'm not going to experience anything. I'm just going to take a picture of it and run. So you can negotiate that. So it's good to look through to make sure it's something that relates to what you would write about on your blog or share on your social media. Rarely, I don't recommend, there was an Instagram thing that happened, I think it was last year, a year and a half ago, where Instagrammers were getting scammed in Bali. So they were being told, hey, put this, pay for this in advance, we'll pay for it, we'll meet you at the airport and give you cash, and it ended up being a scam. Like they were scammed out of their money. So they were left with, they went to Bali, they flew there, they didn't get their money, and then they had nothing to write about. So I wouldn't, yeah, and it happened. It happened to a couple people, unfortunately, and so I'm really skeptical of people that ask for things in advance. I've done it twice, but they were with big companies that I trusted, and they gave me an advance before I flew. So they were paying for the travel, but they wanted me to book things. And specifically, it was one was for an airline campaign, and they were covering the cost of the flights and things, but they were giving me a budget to book my hotels and plan my own itinerary. So everything that I did on the ground, I planned on my own, but they paid for it, and they gave me half the money up front before I flew. So definitely watch out for that. Any other questions? Yes.
What about the importance of being like your own personal brand versus the website's brand? I've just, on my site, I have kind of purposely not made it about me.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering if that makes you less attractive than somebody who's in front of the camera all the time.
I don't think so. I think you could probably still great travel stories. I mean, there's all kinds of articles right now about how destinations are hating this narcissistic trend of taking pictures all the time of people in front of places rather than taking a picture of the destination. So no, I don't think that's bad. There was an article I think that just came out with New York Times yesterday about the pyramids at Giza and how here's this amazing wonder of the world and nobody's really taking pictures of it without themselves in it. So so yeah, I think if your face is not on the brand, that's not going to hinder you at all. You just need to target your niche when you're pitching. Yeah.
For gifted travel, what is the FCC policy on that? Are they supposed to put a hashtag ad?
Good question. I will usually do hosted instead of ad.
Like FCC doesn't recognize that.
Yeah, some have said ad. Yeah, brand partner. As long as you put it for Instagram like above the fold. And it's so hard for them to regulate now because I know a lot of bloggers outside of the U.S. and they don't disclose ever at all. And I don't know how they'd ever go after them because they don't live here. Yeah, and I've seen some people just put, hey, I'm on a press trip, or hey, I'm hosted on this, I'm going with this brand, but they don't put ad because they're not paying for that coverage. It's more like a journalistic approach that you can write about what you want. You're not being paid to write about a specific thing. So, and then one of the campaigns I did put ad in the hashtag that we were using that they were tracking. So that covered it too. But yeah, I've not seen them do ad for press trips specifically.
You can use natural language too.
Yeah, you can be like, I'm on a press trip, I'm hosted. Yeah, because you have travel writers too going on these trips, and they're not disclosing it. They're just putting hosted, or hopefully they're putting hosted. But yeah, usually it's hosted or.
FTC says hosted is unacceptable. They came out
Yeah.
and said it. But magazines
Yeah.
and newspapers, none of them disclose anything.
None of them do. No. I usually do brackets ad rather than hashtag ad right in the front because it's short and it's to the point. Yeah, like it's right there. But yeah, it does get frustrating, especially if you're working on international travel, because a lot of international travel bloggers they don't disclose, and they're not regulated by the FTC. They don't live in the United States. So that'll be interesting to see how that changes. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm just curious, are the destinations or the people that you're working with, do most tend to go for the day rate, or are they going for the packages, or?
Both. So I've seen them go for the day rate for travel, and then add on to it if they want additional blog posts or additional coverage after the trip is done.
And do you have, like, you gave an example for Instagram, do you have like a high, low?
Yeah. So on the low end, I've seen people charge $250 a day for a day rate, and on the high end, I've seen them charge $1,000 a day for a day rate, and that usually includes like 3 posts of social media, of your choice, like so not specific on social media. So it could be like an Instagram story, a tweet, and something else. And then the blog post would be whatever you would normally charge for your sponsored blog post for brands or other people that you're working with.
So day rate would include the social,
But
the trip, but then you'd also charge.
for the blog post. Yeah. Make that money. Yes.
What kind of price ranges have you seen for photos?
Oh, good question.
What they're used, depending on what kind of usage, is it just kind of?
Good question. So most of the photo things I've done have been included in a package. I've seen it where they will hire, I've seen some Instagrammers where they hire them because they're professional photographers, and so it's just their day rate, and the photos that they're producing are work for hire. So it depends on what you're charging and what the package is per photo. I think I've seen like, I'm trying to remember the company that, I can't remember it off the top of my head, that usually buys photos for stock photos, but usually it's like $100 a photo to $250 to $500 a photo, depending on your level of skill and what you're shooting, like if it's really hard to shoot or if it's, just a normal tour. Any other questions? Yes?
I have one, and I apologize, I missed the first part.
That's okay.
Do you usually travel by yourself?
No, my husband usually comes with me. If it's let me backtrack a little bit. He comes with me like 80% of the time. There are some that it's just a group of bloggers, like I think I mentioned earlier. There was one where they sent a YouTuber to video us there, and so it was more of this like lifestyle kind of thing. But yeah, it's a mix. But he comes with me. I put him to work. Hold this, honey. Take some pictures. Yeah, for sure. Any other questions? What time is it? Close to lunch? It's lunchtime. Feel free to email me if you have any other questions. I am going to do the pop-up Facebook group. If you sign up for the 10-day challenge, you'll get an email a day that will remind you, to do things like on social media or to fix up your press kit. So hopefully you all will travel in 2020.
Thank you.